If people don't understand the grooming process, how can we expect them to prepare their dogs for our services? I was asked a really innocent question this week, and it kind of blew my groomer mind. What was that question? Coming up next. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. As I was drying a dog this week, I was asked a very innocent question. An owner asked, "Aren't you going to trim him? I want a haircut." What a simple and basic question. So we as humans go to have our hair cut and it's usually cut wet. Why wouldn't our owners and other dog pros who aren't groomers, why wouldn't they think that we trim dogs wet and that blow drying is just being fancy schmancy? Why wouldn't they think that? So the answer to the question, for all of my listeners who aren't groomers, is that we usually trim dogs after the bath and blow dry. And that's how we get that plush and pretty look that most of our customers are used to seeing. From a groomer's point of view, blow drying is an important part of the process. It affects the finished look of the trim. We are hairstylists, after all. So for us, the blow dry isn't frivolous, it's part of the process. Now, for the dogs who are shedding, that's where we get most of that shedding coat out. So when you think about Goldens and Labs, dogs that have a lot of undercoat, that's where a lot of that shedding stuff comes out, is through the drying process, and not as much with just the brushing or even just the bathing. Now, there are times when we think a breed is, just a bath, but there's still a lot of shedding, and that comes off with the high velocity dryer. We might think it's just a bath and a little bit of trimming, but a high velocity dryer is where we pull out so much of that shedding coat. And that's true of a lot of breeds that you don't usually think about. Breeds like boxers that have such tiny, tiny hair. Pit bulls, short-haired chihuahuas. We think about that really, really short hair. The dryer is what gets a lot of that shedding out. Another reason why drying is an important part of the grooming process is because it's better on our tools. So as groomers, we spend a lot of money on our tools. And trimming clean, dry hair is much, much easier on our expensive tools. We may choose to do some clipping before a bath. Plenty of groomers trim off a lot of coat before they bathe because they don't want to wash coat that's not going to stay anyway. That kind of depends. That varies. We all have slightly different opinions about it. Sometimes I'll take a bunch of coat off so that a dog isn't going to be needing as much time with drying. There are ways that we can adjust our grooming process for a dog who is having a hard time with dryers and with the drying process. But in general, I like to run my tools through clean, dry hair because it's just better for my tools. And I think people who aren't groomers don't really know how much we all spend on our tools. So I'm going to give you an idea here. I had somebody look at my grooming kit and I was like, well, but if you drop that box, I'm going to cry probably for a week. And they're like, really? I mean, it's a couple of brushes and maybe some blades. And I'm like, yeah, so that brush was $80. Each of those blades is anywhere from like 25 to 35. And they're like, oh my God. Like that's when they realize that we have a pretty significant kit that we use. It's not cheap stuff, a pair of shears, they're thinking like, well, they're scissors, like, yeah, those aren't $20 scissors that you would get at a craft store. These are expensive pieces of equipment. And so when I'm grooming, I really want to use that on clean coats. Now, again, if there's a behavior problem, if a dog is having trouble with the drying process, if you tell us that and we know that, we can be working around that. And we can make some adjustments in the way that we do things. Now, sometimes I will go ahead and wet clip. What is wet clipping? Wet clipping is when a dog is in the tub and I go ahead and just trim around their eyes and do some scissoring in the tub. Or I might use a clipper in the tub. If I do, it's a cordless clipper. It's not great for your blades, but it's different than just a dirty coat because now it's at least clean. It's just wet and it's a matter of oiling your blades and stuff afterward. I have a pair of shears that I use for tubs that are not going to be a problem if they get destroyed. I'm not going to cry too hard, but I have something specific for that. They're heavy duty. They can get through a clump of wet hair. But folks, I want you to know that the drying process is really important for what we as groomers do. Not frivolous. It's not like, well, skip the blowout. Like, we just need a haircut. We don't need the blowout. Nothing fancy. But we want that dog to look great. And we can get ahead of ourselves sometimes and just start in on the bath without knowing how the dog is going to be about drying. And drying is a really common one for dogs to have a problem with. Not because all dogs have a problem with it. And that's one of the things I find that non-groomers don't quite get. Plenty of dogs are perfectly fine for the dryer. And I think that it's really easy for non-groomers to say, oh, of course they're bad for the dryer. Their poor ears. And to some extent, yes, their poor ears. It's a lot of noise. However, many, many, many dogs are totally fine for the dryer without needing any sort of intricate training or anything. We complain about it a lot as groomers because it's a common problem for dogs, but not because every dog has a problem with it. So when we talk to owners about he had some trouble with the dryer or with drying, they're still expecting well, the haircut must be fine. But I want you to think back to what I just said. The haircut, a beautiful plush haircut, really requires drying and fluff drying and really getting that coat really, really straight while we're drying. This isn't just, get them dry faster. It's not groomers just trying to save time. It really is about the finish. Even a dog who's being taken down really short, like real short, clipped so he's like velvety, that velvety look is produced by drying. So I want you to think about the drying process being important. And part of why I want people to know that, so if you're a groomer and you're like, yeah, obvious. But even if you know that, even you, my listener, sitting in front of me, because I always picture a person in front of me while I'm talking. Who knows what that person looks like at any given week, but I always picture a person. I'm speaking directly to you. Even if you already know that, we need strategies to express this idea that we already know to people who don't know. So one of the ways that I explain that to people is that if you want them to be really plush and pretty, I need to do the drying. Without the drying, I can trim coat. I can get the dog clean. There are lots of things I can do without the dryer, without the drying process. It will not be the same kind of look. And to tell them that ahead of time. Now, circling back to what I said in the intro to this show, how can we expect our owners to prepare their dogs for the grooming process if they don't understand the process? So now, if owners know this is important for the grooming process, this is part of how we get dogs finished. This is also, in some cases, a safety factor. I live in New England, and in winter, if it's super, super cold, I do not want to send a dog home wet. It's different than if they got wet on the surface. They've been soaked and saturated all the way down to their skin. They're not going to air dry. We don't want them going outside when they're saturated down to their skin. So we need to be thinking about drying as an important part, that even if your dog is not comfortable with it at this point, we should be working toward a dog who is comfortable with drying. And that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to force dry over their whole head. Now, actually, that brings a new point as I'm sitting here talking to my imaginary person sitting in front of me. If you're not a groomer, there are different types of dryers. So we have what's called a high velocity dryer, and that's the one that we call a force dryer. And it works in a couple of different ways. One, it can blow water right off the coat. Really just push it. Mechanical means shove it off the coat as if it's a squeegee, sort of like a snowplow, just pushing snow off the roads. It's July right now as I'm recording this. Apparently, I really am loving the idea of snow. I have lots of snow examples today. Anyway, pushing all of that water off and helping squeezing dogs out. That's part of what a high velocity dryer does. Other types of dryers, like the stand dryers, they work a little bit more about evaporating water. So when we dry our own hair, we as humans, we're usually using something that's warm and blowing air. So there's a little bit of mechanical means that the air is flowing and it's pushing water off as it goes, but mostly we're relying on evaporating that water. The force dryer, when we're grooming dogs, is almost like that high-powered hand dryer that you see at some of the rest stops and fast food places, that one that blows water right off of your hand. That's more of what a force dryer is. And it's really, really handy to get most of that water off so that we can then switch to something that's more evaporative. So it's a really important key part of what we use. And like I said, then there are stand dryers, which are more like giant hair dryers that we as people are used to. There are also cage dryers, which basically means it's a hair dryer pointed into a crate or pointed into a cage. They've been vilified an awful lot, but most of them have a timer and a warm setting, not a hot setting. They are supposed to be used under direct supervision, somebody right there in the room watching. Anyway, those are some of the types of dryers that we have. I also have a brush dryer. I love my brush dryer. It's a dryer for pets, and it is a hair dryer with a brush on the end, a slicker brush, and it's a little bit quieter, and some of the dogs really like it. If I were to just use that on a saturated dog, it would take me a week. That's a finishing tool. So sometimes people are asking about, well, what if we use something that's quieter? The stuff that's quieter is going to take much, much longer. And that's why it's really important for owners to know that drying is important. And the loud dryer has a purpose. It saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of time, saves a lot of effort, saves a lot of their dog's effort, and that they should be working toward a dog who can handle a loud noise, which is really the problem with the high velocity dryer. It's loud. Owners have things at home that are loud that they can work with. Things like vacuum cleaner. It's kind of the same kind of loud. But if they don't know that it's important, they won't work on it. If they don't understand what their dog goes through or what their dog needs to understand, they're not going to work on it. So it's up to us to make sure that people know the drying is not an upsell and it's not frivolous. It's actually part of the job that we're trying to do. And it's an important part of our job. We're willing to work around it. The results will not be as nice. So you gotta let go of the idea that your doodle's gonna look fabulous. If they aren't dried at all, it's not gonna look pretty. It's gonna be functional. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Let's start with some human examples, because that's where so many of my own customers have had their aha moment. What do we as humans know about using a straight or flat hair trimming tool over curvy, bumpy, and non-flat surfaces? Where's she going with this one, right? Okay, ladies, when you shave your legs, even though that's a razor and it's not a clipper, I'm gonna make the comparison because it's flat and your legs are not. So when you shave your legs, is it a simple swipe, 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 long straight lines and done? Here's another common misunderstanding of the grooming process. And I've heard it a number of times. I haven't heard it lately, but I've heard it a number of times. I've heard it from pet professionals. I've heard it from pet owners. And this one goes something to the effect of, we don't want anything fancy anyway. Just shave it all off. Just take it all off. Take him as short as you can because he hates it. What's wrong with this one? So when we have a dog who is having a hard time with grooming, we sometimes hear people say, just take it off. We know he hates it, so take it as short as possible so we don't have to put him through this until next spring or whatever crazy long time they have in mind for when the coat has become tangled, unmanageable, and messy, and it's truly unhealthy and likely painful. We need to be helping people understand that their dogs need frequent grooming and that waiting until it's that bad and just saying, it's okay, just take it all off. Yeah, we know he's a wreck, but he hates it so much. Because the problem here is that People think that this is easy. Do you need to move the skin around to try to make flatter surfaces, to move the tool around? Now, I used to be a nurse's aide and a home health aide. I have shaved men's faces. So humans, I'm going to tell you, no, we actually do a lot more work than just swipe, swipe, swipe. Okay? And I need you to think about when we're using clipper blades on a dog to take their coat very, very short, or we're trying to get underneath mats. So I'm going to mention here, I know I keep getting off on tangents. We can't clip through mats. We clip under mats. So we're trying to get that clipper blade not only over the skin, but under the mats, between the skin and the matted fur, between the skin and the knots. And we are on a surface that has all sorts of curves and lumps and bumps to try to work around. And that's on a healthy dog. So if we have dogs with moles or other little lumps and, maybe cuts, who knows what's going on underneath the mat. It's nitpicky, meticulous work. It's fussy. It's tedious. So I want you to be thinking about when an owner says, we only bring him in when he really needs it because he hates it so much, just take it all off. We don't want anything fancy. Do you now have a different idea about what that means? Because when we're trying to get a clipper blade across a dog's skin, every itty bitty, teeny tiny millimeter of that dog is going to be touched with a clipper blade. Holy moly, that's a lot of work. And it's a lot of work for the average dog who finds it difficult. So it's not necessarily this gift. Oh, they're going to let us shave him. Like, oh, just take it down. Every 6 months or every year, we just take him down because he hates it so much, like not a good answer. And I want you to really think about that because now we have to take that clipper blade everywhere on that dog. Every single teeny tiny place. So think about ladies, ankles and knees. Men, think about like smoothing out that upper lip and trying to get underneath your chin. Now imagine that person is fighting against you. So now we have a dog who is not good for it, doesn't like it, or is traumatized, or whatever the story is, but the quote unquote, he hates it so much, right? And you want us to meticulously go over that dog with literally the fine-tooth comb. Everywhere, every little teeny tiny inch, every little teeny tiny nook and cranny. We're in his armpits, we're in his groin, we're under his tail, we're in the corners of his eyes, we're under his ears, we're in between his toes, we're in the pads of his feet. We are everywhere with a clipper blade. So it's not a simple matter of, oh, just take it all off. We need to teach this dog to be good for it. It's really important. Now, I'm going to say, we're going to add in here too, but my groomer said he needs to be shaved and it needs to be clipped off. And yes, often that's what we as groomers are going to tell you because the coat is in such terrible shape that we don't have any other option. Sometimes the coat is just to the point where we don't have another option. We need to complete the grooming and try to restore some sort of healthy skin. Now, some of us will go ahead and try to demat some stuff. Sometimes there are some products that we can use that'll really help with that. Sometimes we can take them shorter without having to take it all off because clipping dogs down isn't necessarily healthy for many, many types of dogs. But there are plenty of times, especially with the case of, oh, we get him done only when he absolutely desperately needs it because he hates it so much, tend to be like every 6 months or a year kind of customers. And we need to express this to grooming customers. So groomers, if you're a groomer, you need to express this to these customers because we all know there's going to come a point where they're going to have a real hard time finding a groomer because the increase in pet ownership, many, many groomers are booked out month, 2 months, 3 months in advance. And these owners are going to be like, what? But he needs to be done now. I mean, it's April. We get him done every April. We've been coming here since he was a puppy, And we're going to have no sympathy for it because we're like, yeah, but other people get their dogs done all the time. So as we help people understand this process, we also need them to understand we can work with a dog who finds this uncomfortable, who finds this frightening. It's not healthy for them to have tangles right next to their skin. It's like wearing wet gym socks for 6 months. It's not healthy. Their skin can't breathe. And there are times where we do have to take it right off and we have to just clip this coat because the coat has become so damaged. Now, what I mean by that, I know I keep going on tangents today. This is what happens when Chrissy goes totally off script. What I mean by that is that there are times where the coat has been roughed up so much, there's so much dirt that each individual hair is actually damaged, and it is very likely to mat right back up. If I think that brushing it through and using some good products on it will help that coat continue to be healthy, then that's what I'll do. But there are times where it has been matted and felted and pressed and really, really grimy, and there's really not much we can do. But if I can save the coat, I will try to. Now, the other thing is, even if he hates it, even if a dog hates it, give the groomer a chance to decide what that dog is going to find least stressful. Because sometimes it's a matter of clipping part of the body and actually kind of doing a little bit of scissor work on legs. There are times I will take a grungy old pair of scissors. Shears are grooming scissors for those who are not groomers. But I have a couple pairs of like just things I'll use in the tub, things I'll use for like breaking through mats. Sometimes I'll do some chopping through mats and brushing out because some dogs can handle that but can't handle clippers. What? You mean can't handle clippers? Yeah. Some of the dogs that come in every 6 months or every year because they hate it so much, it's because they hate the clipper. Some of them are fine if I can get in there with like a brush and a comb and just a pair of shears that I don't care about cutting through mats with. So give the groomer the option to figure out exactly what will help this dog, because it might not be clipping them down. And I think that if we as the grooming industry are going to be discouraging it, then we need to also tell people why and offer other solutions. And that other solution, I know, I'm talking about creating great grooming dogs, right? The other solution is to simply teach dogs to be better for it. I know that seems so straightforward, doesn't it? Let's help these owners help their dogs be better for it, because then they can actually help their dog be healthier. We want these dogs to be healthy. And grooming is more than just haircuts. Grooming is skincare, and it's part of healthcare. But you don't need to have a professional groomer do it. So, groomers, we don't need to put up with the every 6 months, every year, he hates it, so just shave him down and do this meticulous job. We can refuse those people because you know what? They are in charge of if their dog is groomed or not. And they can buy equipment, and they can groom their own dog. And they probably will figure out pretty quickly why we're having trouble with it. And suddenly they're like, oh, maybe we should do some training. Huh, who knew? So if we don't tell owners what is expected of the dog and what the process is, they're not going to be able to prepare their dogs for the process that needs to happen. And it's not really their fault, right? An educated customer, a well-versed customer is always going to be easier for us. That's always a win. There are 2 big problems with taking it all off, waiting until he's really, really bad and taking it all off and doing them less frequently. The first problem is that we need to teach dogs to be more comfortable with grooming and other physical care, and that takes frequency and repetition of good experiences. That's the first problem with that. Okay, and I think I cover that so often, we're just not going to get into that as much. But the second problem with this idea is that clipping dogs down isn't easy. It's not some unskilled, easy peasy job that you're gifting to groomers and we're expected to say thank you. All right? Yeah, I know, I'm being a little bit cheeky here, but it needs to be said. Clipping down or shaving a dog who is matted with a neglected coat, even on a well-behaved dog under the best of conditions, is not easy. It is not simple, right? It may be very straightforward. It might not take a whole lot of art skill, but it does take a long time, right? And people will say, but we're not asking for anything fancy. And yeah, I get that. But that's not how clipping works. They don't want to put them through anything hard. They don't want anything fancy. Just take it all off. Now, that is not easy. Or do you need to spend some time working around knees and ankles? Do you occasionally miss spots as you move up something shaped more like a cylinder than a flat surface? Are you using the full width of the blade as you go up your shin? Right? Flat hair cutting tool on surfaces that are not flat means a lot of repetitions and a lot of smoothing out of skin. Now, guys, when you shave your chin or your upper lip with a straight hair cutting tool, is it a simple swipe, done? If you'd like more information, you can find me at chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.